Eoghan Corry is my name. This is the Travelwrap. It was discontinued, but it has now been revived with the support of the Irish Travel Agents Association. It's not endorsed by them, but it is a professional forum with professional analysis and professional views from across our industry at a very serious time for our industry. Over 100 travel agents made it over the line for the May round of licensing. That was quite an achievement considering the stress the industry is under. And our thoughts are with the 4 who did not. User Travel, East West Travel, Rathgar Travel and Flyaway Travel. A couple of issues that have been haunting the trade. One of them was partially solved today at Cabinet. It means that vouchers or at least credit notes are going to get some recognition. They're going to be part of the bonding system. They're going to be part of the consumer protection system. That ends a situation where each of the airlines and the travel companies was issuing vouchers with their own rules. It means the consumer is protected, and it also means that the travel agent is now not facing a demand for a refund which is backed by the law, EU 261 and the Package Holiday Directive. But Irish law has given some sort of way of buying time for the travel industry. It doesn't mean new cash will be coming in. What it does mean is that customers now have a viable alternative, and most of them only want their holiday. Further details will emerge of the scheme in the coming days, but as it stands, consumer rights have been protected and the viability of many travel businesses is no longer in question. The second thing the trade needs is the summer 2021 schedule to be loaded. At ordinary times, that would be something to sell. For the trade, it means something to transfer existing bookings to. People would be quite happy to keep a deposit and move their dates to the exact same week in 2021, but these are not available. Aer Lingus has unique problems, which are legacy problems. The front end of the system not talking to the back end of the system. It's caused problems for GDS versus website. All of those not easily countered in peacetime, never mind in the wartime we're facing now with COVID-19. Ryanair, I'm told commercial, are working on it. It'll happen one day soon. They're getting it into the system as quickly as they can. They are watching things like airports which may no longer be functioning for next summer, and they're also watching their fleet requirements. 2 years ago, Ryanair had the summer schedule for the following year loaded at this stage. They still haven't. It's not for the want of trying. They are working on it. Return dates for most of the airlines, they've been pushed back to July. July the 1st is when Etihad have programmed theirs. Emirates sometime around the same. Cathay Pacific around July the 6th. American Airlines July the 8th for their Dublin to Chicago service 5 times a week. But remember, the airports are open, if barely. Cork Airport has 2 services. They are Stansted with Ryanair and Heathrow with Aer Lingus. Shannon have Heathrow with Aer Lingus. Belfast City have the Heathrow service with Aer Lingus, flight 930, which landed on social media earlier in the week. But that's the only flight in and out of Belfast because Belfast International is closed and Belfast City has only 1 service. Knock Airport are also closed. Ryanair are flying virtually empty. They would normally project 42.5 million customers in this quarter, which ends in June. They're now talking about 150,000. But they are keeping the aircraft in the air to keep the aircraft certified and the pilot certified. They added Bristol to their services this week. You can get to Birmingham and to Manchester, to Stansted and to Gatwick with Ryanair. You can get to Edinburgh and Glasgow with Ryanair, and in Germany you can get to Berlin and Cologne with Ryanair. Both airlines serve Amsterdam, Brussels, Lisbon with Ryanair. We still have skeleton services from KLM to Amsterdam and to Charles de Gaulle with Air France. But key, we have 4 long-haul services still in Dublin Airport. Doha with Qatar Airways. We have Chicago, Boston and New York with Aer Lingus. Airport numbers are tiny. To give an example, 630 passengers went through Dublin Airport yesterday. Bank holiday traffic, 900 passengers when it would be over 100,000. That means lots of consumer media coverage about social distancing. Is it possible in aircraft? Quite clearly no. What's happening in the airports? They're probably going to implement a whole series of safety measures. The 3 areas which are important for consumer confidence at least is temperature measuring. A little bit of debate how effective this is, but it is being used in the Asian airports which have reopened. There will also be serious disinfection of aircraft. That's already happening. Aircraft filter systems have also been updated. Some countries are implementing masks on board. KLM, who implemented it this week. Canada has implemented it across all carriers, and Air Canada are doing temperature checks as you board. What does this mean for the resumption of travel? Well, we're looking at a July resumption, despite Simon Harris's comments last week. He said that everybody coming back into the country will need to quarantine for 2 weeks, which turns a 2-week holiday into a 4-week holiday. They're the measures that are in place at the moment. Will they remain in place all the way through to the autumn? But we await some direction on that. In the meantime, the aviation industry is planning a return around July. Ryanair are talking about 40% of their fleet back in the sky with 50% load factors. They're talking about August being 60% of the fleet back with 60% load factor, and September 80% of their fleet back in the sky with 70% load factors. Eurocontrol are talking about 38% of Europe-wide's fleet going back in the sky, or 15%. And the difference is if the reaction and if the return is coordinated at European level. They're also talking about August having about 60% of the fleet back in the sky, but it will be a much lower figure without a coordinated response. Coordinated is the key word. Transport ministers talked about it when they met remotely last Wednesday. In the meantime, we've seen the emergence of a new concept, the travel bubble. Australia and New Zealand grouped together as a travel bubble. New Zealand doesn't see long-haul travel coming back for a year, so this is what they're going to do to try and save their tourism. The Baltic states are talking about forming their own travel bubble. But national boundaries, which have re-emerged since the start of this, we need to start breaking them down again. To get back travelling, very obviously, we need Ireland to unlock, but we also need somewhere we like going to unlock. Very strong case to be made for the Canary Islands. Lanzarote and Fuerteventura, very few cases, very low infection rate, completely at variance with what is happening elsewhere in Spain. And tonight, breaking news, the Canary Islands will be the destination with the first safe flight with a digital health passport. The Balearics are not very far behind. So we could have a situation where Lanzarote, Fuerteventura unlock fairly quickly, Gran Canaria will follow, Tenerife has a higher number of cases, and then the Balearics kick in. They are serious holiday destinations from Ireland, and if you bring Portugal in as well, by September we could be back in the air and we could be travelling in the sort of numbers that mean maybe we won't save the summer season, but there will be something left. All of that is subject to medical advice, not just in Ireland, but in the affected countries, and crucially to the return of confidence to the consumer. The one lever that has been used through crises in the past is price. Expect the airlines to pull that lever and pull it again. Expect something similar from the cruise companies. People will remember €1 sales back in September and October 2009. That's the level of price discounting we're probably facing to get people back into the sky in numbers in September. The siege of travel agents has not gone away. One of our major travel agents this week, another staff member resigned because they cannot handle the abuse. But a lot of travel agents saying customers understand what's going on. All they want is a new date for their holiday. Some travel agents who have the freedom to do so are deferring the final payment to push the holiday back into 2021. That is a good compromise. It means the travel agent has written off the year, but the consumer doesn't lose. We're going to turn to a wise man to finish, or maybe two wise men. The first is Carsten Spohr. He's the CEO of Lufthansa. March the 3rd was one of the last aviation events I covered, and he was asked about state aid. Lufthansa was completely against state aid.
This industry is far away from government help, at least when you look at the airlines on stage.
You five.
So there's a lot
the
of,
five airlines up here,
before you need help, there's a lot of burdens you could take away. We never ask for help. We ask for less burdens to be competitive, especially those of us who compete with outside of Europe, because it's not a zero-sum game within Europe from many of us. It's us competing against the rest of the world. And then also on top, we all believe the consolidation in Europe is overdue. And there's 50% of European aviation on the stage. If we were in the US, there would be 80% of US aviation on stage if you invite the 5 big players. So I think a crisis can also help to accelerate consolidation. Don't tell my CFO I said Corona is an opportunity, because he's losing his sleep. But if you take a longer term view, maybe one day we look back at it as a healthy acceleration of consolidation.
That work out, Lufthansa have been back to Berlin, and the government in Austria, they're looking for something like 10 billion euro in state aid. Messages coming from Berlin that Lufthansa is part of the family silver, and the German government talking about taking 25% stake. They're not alone. All over Europe, Alitalia has been renationalised. Air France and KLM have gone separately to the Paris and the Amsterdam governments. Iberia, which is part of IAG, which owns Aer Lingus, they've gone to Madrid for 1 billion. British Airways against state aid, but they're probably doing that while they watch Virgin Atlantic struggle to get state aid from Westminster, and SAS are looking for state aid from 3 separate governments. One person who's very cranky about this, predictably, is Michael O'Leary, and here he is. But take a look at the background.
I mean, like Lufthansa is like a crack cocaine junkie looking for state aid. They're already getting huge payroll support from the German government.
When Michael O'Leary moved into his shiny new office in Swords, he had Brian Cooper on one of his horses jumping over a fence as his backdrop, which was a bit of a problem because Michael O'Leary fired Brian Cooper shortly before he moved into the office. So now he had the jockey he fired looking down on him. Instead, now...
What do you need more state aid for? Like, actually, we don't have many other costs at the moment because we're all grounded. But if you're getting state payroll support, as we and IAG and other airlines do, what do you need the 10 billion for? And by the way, it's not just 10 billion. They're looking for 10 billion from the German government. They're looking for nearly $1 billion from the Austrian government, from the Swiss government. I mean, it's just, they are off their heads. They see this, I think, as an opportunity to get one last huge quantity of state aid so they can go around and buy up everybody when this is all over.
What a magnificent and ruthless predator of the bush that is. And the one in the picture behind isn't bad either. And we look forward to that cheetah running in Cheltenham next year. That's it for now. We'll be back on Tuesday. Another serious update on all travel matters for a serious time for our trade. Any comments you can send to owntravel@gmail.com. This is your slot. Use it to get the information that you require dealing with your customers.